Do what makes you happy. That is that is the first rule and law of the
Yeah,
universe.
and
Do what makes you happy.
Yes,
we're
do
live.
what makes you happy. We are live. Welcome to another edition of Conversations on Being, on breaking the rules, on being in airports, and being in the middle of a Being You class. And how does it get even better than that? Welcome,
does
Paula.
it?
Welcome, Helen. Welcome, Rachel.
Well,
How
welcome,
y'all
Rachel. Welcome, Paula. And we are talking about being. What is being?
doing?
What? Ah. So, Paula, you're one of the facilitators, and we are kind of interviewing every single one. Well, not every
Who's
single.
volunteering? Yeah, not everybody would
Volunteering,
like to
Yeah.
not
necessarily
have to.
show
No.
up and play. So
Yeah,
it depends.
about what is being you classes, and what drawn you into this specialty of access consciousness?
Yeah, I first of all thank you so much for having me, beautiful ladies.
We're
Uh,
excited.
it's interesting. The thing that I've been looking at more and more lately is being you is really, it starts with getting that you're not wrong. Because so often I have so many conversations, whether it's in classes or clients or just with even like my nephews. I spent some time with my family this week, and
Mhm.
I just watch how so often, like from a very young age, we're molded and shaped into this construct of like what is appropriate behavior, what is not appropriate behavior, apologizing for the behavior that's deemed inappropriate, which all of these things are like, it's just based on someone's opinion. And so we end up as adults with no clue who we are or who we be in the world or the magic that we be, because we've lived an entire life of being really assigned these rules and regulations of what being actually is.
Mhm.
And that's where I've been starting more and more in all of my conversations is you're not wrong. You're not
Yeah.
wrong.
I love that. I love that.
Really?
Considering that so many of us are constantly told that we're wrong and that we're not fitting in appropriately. You know, we're not entering in somebody's slot, and that we're not living
Yeah.
up to somebody's expectations. And
Yeah.
nobody even considers, well, what is it that you would like?
Yeah.
And what is it that works for you? No, that's not even allowed to be considered.
Yeah.
And on
Well,
the top of that, we are actually like make ourselves wrong. We judge ourselves based on everything, including other people's and our judgment of what's appropriate or
yeah.
not.
It's so interesting. I'm in Gary Douglas and Chris Hughes class right now. What do you say that is stupid?
Mhm.
And one of the things that Gary said multiple times in different ways yesterday was, what can you say that is different? What can you be that is different? And really, that all ultimately to me ties back to being you, because it's like it is our difference. It is the things that put us outside of the mold. It is the like subtle rebellions or the big rebellions, or those things that are unique to you that make the world go around and make the world a really special, beautiful, wonderful place. And that's what's really cool is if all three of us were put in the exact same situation, we're probably all going to respond differently for a
Yeah.
multitude of reasons. And what if none of that is wrong?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's like when you can get people out of the wrongness of them, then they actually start to have choice and they start to
And
recognize that.
possibly fun. Like,
Oh,
what a
and
concept.
no,
Yeah.
totally, just like what you said, that it's like if you do what makes you happy, and it's like
Mhm.
that's not something that very many people are doing.
No. And,
No,
and
it
and not only that, yeah, I mean, you're a rebel there because you even said what makes you happy. And most people are like, somebody else has to make me happy, not me make me happy. So that's a huge mic drop right
Yeah.
there. The
Mhm.
do what
Or
makes you happy. Oh my God, you could actually choose. What a
totally, or
concept.
that like if other people aren't happy with me, then I can't be
Yeah,
happy.
Yeah.
Or if other
exactly.
people aren't happy, I can't be happy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's all about other people's happiness, their comfort, their what they need instead of what we choose.
yep.
Yeah.
And that's it's so interesting too, because I've had some really, really powerful, potent people in my life, and I've watched them as they choose for them. It's actually an invitation for other people to do the same. So
Yeah.
we're entrained to think that, oh, if if I'm doing what makes me happy, or if I choose the thing that is going to create my future or create the future that I know is possible, but if someone has an opinion about it or they're not happy about it, then, oh, I should maybe not choose it. But what actually happens is when you choose for you and you choose for the future that you know is possible, it's actually an invitation to other people to do the same, because you're showing them that it's possible.
I
Mhm.
imagine that was like that this weekend with your nephews too,
Yeah.
watching you, not just you watching them, but them watching you and seeing, well, Auntie Paula does it this way. What
Yeah,
does she know?
Yeah,
totally.
and
It is
how
good.
much of different life you can you can be. It's about creating beyond this reality, because this reality tells us you can and cannot. Like those things is what's appropriate.
Totally. Yeah, and it's interesting because even before I started using the tools of access consciousness, like my entire life, I was depressed and had really massive anxiety, and I would go like weeks where I was in bed, like I couldn't get out of bed because I was just so depressed, and it really came down to I felt like I was always getting it wrong. That no matter what I did, I was wrong. I wasn't, whatever it was, I wasn't smart enough or pretty enough or thin enough, or I didn't, whatever, like
Or
you name
short
it.
enough?
Right, or that.
Yeah,
Just saying.
You name it, like that was like you name the wrongness, and I could find a way to apply it to myself, and it's
I
so
love that.
interesting.
That's actually extremely interesting because we don't even realize cognitively how often we mold all of that wrongness and just try to fit it in as a sticker onto ourselves.
Well, it becomes a habit. And so that's where it's, you move towards what you focus on. So if you're focused on finding the wrongness of you, you're going to be able to find the wrongness of you every time.
Yeah.
yeah,
And what would happen if we actually begin to play with the rightness of us?
Totally. And that's honestly one of my favorite questions. It was one of the first questions I learned, but like, what's right about me that I'm not getting?
hmm
And when you start to ask that question, it opens up a whole world of possibilities, because you can start to look at, the universe will show you the things that are great
hmm.
about you, whether it's in like your 5-year-old nephew coming in and snuggling you every morning, or whether it's, the great conversations I had with my nephew, my 12-year-old nephew, as we were
Hmm.
going out and like getting ice cream or whatever that was. Just like the fun and the play of being is really the
Yeah,
gift that's possible when you actually aren't so fixated on the wrongness of you. And it's more fun. Like that's the thing.
It
It's so
is.
much more fun.
And life just lightens up in general when you're
Mhm.
being you. And actually it opens up to so many different possibilities when you're willing to just like even 1% consider that you may not be a total wrongness walking. There's room for another possibility in there to just begin to play. And I
Totally.
love that.
yeah,
It, there's so much more relaxation in not
Hmm.
having to prove how wrong you are all the time.
yeah. Or to prove how right you are.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
suppose so, but I've not been on that end of it as often
I have,
as the
I have.
wrongness
I've
walking.
argued. Yeah, I've
Well,
argued
and
quite a bit.
and Helen, you bring up such a good point, because it's like, we also, in getting out of the wrongness of us, our initial reaction is to go to the rightness of like, okay, well, I'm
Yeah.
right. But it's actually, there's this like middle ground that we call interesting point of view, where
Mhm.
it's like nothing is judged, nothing's right, nothing's wrong, and nothing's bad and nothing's good. It's just, it all just is a choice. And that's where the freedom to create your reality truly is. That's where the gift of being shows up, and you can actually be all of you, and that's where like the magic and the miracles of you really start to show up.
Yeah, exactly. Because we are magical. We are, uh, by our choices, we create different reality, not just for ourselves, but for everybody around us. Because every choice can create something different. Even when we choose for us, actually, especially when we choose for us, it opens the possibility for other people to choose for them. instead of what's appropriate, what's good, what's right, what's wrong, or avoiding the wrongness.
Yeah,
This,
it's so true. It's so, and I mean, I know we discussed this, but it's really that thing where being you actually gives other people permission to do the same. And that really
Or
in
to
it
do
that,
their version.
well,
You know,
right, be them.
they're not going to necessarily duplicate us, although I mean, as human beings we tend to be very, very good at mimicking one another, but
Yeah.
it just opens a door to them, for them to explore what is it that they would like, what is it that they could, include and experiment with and experience and enjoy.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
yeah, wow.
No, I think it's so interesting too because it's like one of my other favorite questions that I started playing with so early on was like, who am I today and what grand and glorious adventures am I going to have?
I love
yeah,
that.
And it's one of those things, and I know we've all heard the analogy of like, if it's kind of like living 50 First Dates, that movie where
hmm,
Drew Barrymore, she wakes up every morning and she has amnesia, so she has no memory of the past, of the people, of what, any choices that she's made, and so every single day she gets to create her life and her relationship with Adam Sandler's character in this case, but
hmm,
it's like when you look at that, if you have the opportunity to look at who am I today and what adventures, what fun, what play, what being am I willing to choose today? It's like you can't get it wrong. Like every day you're just creating it because every day it's a new adventure, and you've got to
I
continue
exactly.
love that.
to
I
explore.
love that.
Yeah.
I love
Well,
that.
it's important because to me it's important because so often like we wake up first thing in the morning and we think about all the things we didn't get done yesterday, all the stupid stuff we said, all the like, all the things again like going to the wrongness. But it's
It's
like
how can I judge me? Let me count the ways.
Yeah.
I judge
we're
me, I judge me not. I judge me.
I
totally,
judge me. I judge me. More often it's I judge me.
yeah,
Yeah, and you're right. It's a list of a long list of what did I not finish? What did I not accomplish? What did
Mhm.
I not succeed in? What did I not? Rather than what did I? What do
Yeah.
yeah,
I? And what
yeah.
will be next?
And like how can I create today even greater than yesterday? And
Mhm.
that's going to look different and it's going to be different for everybody, but the ask is that it be greater, whatever that looks like, whatever your greater looks like, it can always be greater and you can always choose greater. And every day you can wake up with a completely clean slate and it doesn't matter what, mistakes or stupid stuff you said. I say stupid stuff all the time. you know but I'm constantly having to be like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean
The
that.
only one.
But it's
But
like,
don't tell anybody.
I know, right?
That's for
It'll be our
sure.
secret. It'll be our
Yeah,
secret.
there you go.
Um, but yeah, it's one of those things where we're just giving yourself space to be actually allows you to be more of you.
Yeah.
Funny how
I
that works.
love that.
Hmm.
Funny how that works. When you give yourself space to be, there's this energy of relaxation, and
Yep.
so much more can actually enter that space and be to interact and to play with you.
And also, it's like when you're not in judgment of you, you're able to actually receive the beauty and the brilliance of the world around you. So, like, here's a perfect example. So, earlier this week, I arrived at my family's house. My nephew saw me.
Looking for standby passengers, party 3 in
Um,
Bay, Wesley,
the
and
first thing he
60.
said was, "Hey, let's go swimming." Now, I mean, I have two choices. As an adult, a lot of women or people judge their bodies, right? Like, how many people don't wear swimming suits because they're afraid to, whatever, show their cellulite or their fat rolls or whatever that is, right?
Hmm.
But I was like, okay, I was like, I didn't bring a swimsuit, but I ran to the store. I bought a cheap swimsuit that was like maybe actually a size too small, but it's fine. But I just like I I like go in the backyard with my nephew who's 5, and I find out he pulls out a slip and slide, which is like, I don't know if you guys know what a slip and slide is. It's like
Yes,
this
Wow, I
I love
love.
long
those.
piece of plastic that you put like a bunch of soap on and water, and then yeah,
And if you
right,
add some like dishwashing liquid,
yeah,
you really get a slip.
yeah, exactly. So I think I'm going swimming, right? I'm gonna bob around, whatever, in my too small swimsuit. But he like wanted so badly. We were going to slip and slide, and I realized in that moment, like, as much as I'm like, I'm like I'm not a small woman, but as I'm like going through on this slip and slide, and he was so delighted and overjoyed, and I just was so aware of how there was no judgment in his world of like whatever my body does or doesn't look like. There was just no judgment. He was so present and in the fun of like, this is going to be so fun. Let's choose this and let's like have the joy of it. It was such an invitation, and it really like set the tone for my entire trip and all of my interactions with him while I was home, just because it was one of those things where I was like, wow, like more of that. Like if I could see the world and live my life every day, like with the joy and the wonder that a child has, with no judgment, it's like, how much fun can we have? And it's like, if we were to see ourselves the same way that,
just say,
listen, right? But it's like, what if you can see yourself, or what if you were willing to look at yourself the way that like a young
I think
celebration and no judgment.
Yeah.
I love that. A celebration of no judgment and just play and exuberance. And it was funny. You muted yourself, but you don't actually need to mute yourself. Because one of the things that I got, especially in our previous conversation during this morning in the BU class, we were talking about how many things do we judge as a disturbance, or do we judge as wrong, or do we judge as a, oh no, this is going to distract, versus what gift of contribution. Look, most of us are sitting at home. I haven't been on a flight since the middle of March. I'm personally thrilled to hear that. See, and she's contributing too. So what gift could all of this be if we're willing to receive the gift and the contribution of everything? I'm just going to see who's at the door. 1 sec.
Yeah, and we'll continue because, and you started talking about 5-year-old. Children don't have judgments. They're just being. And with everything, to them, everything is delightful. Everything is joy. Everything is fun. And they don't judge. They don't judge bodies. So how much can we be like kids in every day?
Yeah, it was. No, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Well, it was interesting too, just to watch. So, like I said, I had two nephews that live near where my parents live, and one's 5 and one is 12. And it was really interesting to even see the difference between them, because they're brothers and they have the same parents, and they interact with my parents as well, obviously, as their grandparents. And it's interesting to see where, like, for example, the Jordy, who's the 5-year-old, has like he owns the world. Like there is no question in his world that he completely owns it, and that whatever he desires, he can create immediately. If not on his own, then by way of one of the adults that he's surrounded by, right? And then whereas like when I look at my 12-year-old nephew, Jaden, like he's much more like you can watch him kind of calculating who's around, or like it's just like kind of modulating, I would say, based on the people that are around him or not around him, or whatever, whether he's with his friends or my parents or my sister who's his mother. It's really, really interesting. But even yesterday, like he said something to me. I was like sitting on a bunch of Zoom meetings, and I had, after days of like not wearing makeup at home, I had like makeup on or whatever, and he just stopped and he's like, "You look incredible." He's 12. And it like lit up my world. And I was like, wow, like where can I have more ease with that acknowledgement, and where can I have like more fun and really just choose to like celebrate people? It's like, how often, even with compliments, we talked about the wrongness, but it's like, how often even with like saying kind things or acknowledging people, do we like kind of shrink, or we feel like it might be weird, or what are they going to think, or what if we don't say it the right way, or whatever that is. And I was just like, man, more of that like childlike joy and wonder and celebration of just being.
And it's something that a lot of teenagers forget, because they're modulating so much based on what are other people going to think about what it is that they say or what it is that they perceive. And if it's not the fad or in fashion of whatever that my daughter plays a lot on TikTok. Well, now they're in this, I don't know, gonna have my TikTok, not gonna have my TikTok. What about all those thousands of videos that I've made since I was 8 years old, the last 5 years of playing on TikTok or whatever. But she's been thrilled with playing on TikTok, but there's trends. And anytime that something goes beyond the trends, some trend finishes, then it's just so passe. We can't even be involved in that, because slime was a really big thing, and then a couple of years ago it went out of style. I still have all the slime ingredients because it was just the thing. And so there's this modulation of what's the correct thing at this moment versus there's a certain ease in that when something is classic, it's available at any time. So if we're willing to choose us, we're the classics. When we choose not what's the fad, but what works for me, it's fadless. And it's
that's true. That's actually really great. And it's interesting too when you start to look at like being you is like it's this interesting journey where the more you choose to be you, the more you have of you, and then the more you're able to invite others to have it, and then that creates you having more of you, and then you be more of you, and then it invites other people, and then you have more of you, and it's this like interesting invitation.
A domino effect.
It is, but it's almost like when you roll a snowball in the snow and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's like that. It's that, like, just continuing to add and create greater and be more of an invitation and be more fun and have more play and more joy and more of you.
Exactly, because it's I remember listening to some radio show or something, and there was a kid, I think 10 years old, and he said, everything is contagious. Joy is contagious and consciousness is contagious.
Yeah.
So
virus of possibilities, anybody?
Yeah. So what if we be that contagion of joy, happiness, and being?
Yeah.
Because instead of like the COVID.
Yeah. Well, infecting the world with joy.
So I just watched a movie. It's an older movie, but it was the first time that I'd seen it. V for Vendetta. And have you seen that? Oh my God.
No.
Oh, and it's so relevant now, actually, with everything that's going on. A lot of it was about separating people and about creating a lot of fear. And rather than what is it that you know to be true? What is your awareness of what's going on? What is it that you would like to create? What is it that you'd like to infect the world with? And it isn't about the vengeance or the whatever, but the infection of possibilities, the infection of knowing, the infection of consciousness, the infection of joy, rather than the I don't know anything and I've got to shut in and I've got to contain myself and I've got to contract.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Because also, so Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, yesterday in this "What Do You Say That Is Stupid" class, he said the stupidest thing that you say is "I don't know," and I also
it's a lie.
Right, and I also recently did a Choice of Possibilities class with Simone Milasas, and one of the things she always empowers people is that and that's, I mean, even when you read the Being You book, like Dane talks about that. Dane here, also the co-creator of Access Consciousness, speaks to that as well, that like and you maybe have never been empowered to know that or you've never been asked what or you've forgotten somehow in this journey that we call life that and it's like that's if we can get back to that, and that is truly the joy of being, is that you're not wrong, and what's going to create the future, what's going to create your life, what is true for you, no matter what the trends are, the fads, or the pandemics, or whatever it is.
Yeah, it's a trend too, Who would have thunk really a year ago that we'd be locked up or have to wear fashionable masks or whatever the case is? That was just like inconceivable. Like, who would even imagine anything like that?
Yeah.
And yeah, the world's a little different. And what can we be to invite the world to a different difference,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
to having more play and more joy?
Yeah. To be us instead of like, even with masks, what if we can still choose the joy, ease, glory, and be that invitation to a totally different reality where
We are not doing masks that have
we
cold
don't
words
have
such
to
as
hide, even with a mask.
no bandana. So if
Because
anyone
a
needs
lot of times
come up here at customer
we
service.
hide, even before the mask. How often did we hide ourselves, who we be? Because of judgment, because of fear, because of anxiety, because of depression, because of other stuff.
Mhm.
And yet it's much easier
Yep.
to be. Because then, how much energy do we waste on hiding, on contracting, on eliminating parts of us so we can fit into somebody else's reality?
Yeah, like
Yep.
you would not have had those slip and slide adventures and that joy and that exuberance. And look at, Gloria's smile and I'm sure laughter also. And who knows, maybe like not a rug burn, but like a slip and slide burn, who knows,
Yes.
depending on how
Craft burn.
much detergent you guys prepped it with. But you wouldn't have had that thrill and that enthusiasm and that exuberance had you been so concerned about, oh my God, I have to look good in this, there's so much pretense and posturing and trying to fit what somebody else thinks is right, good, perfect, and correct. And there isn't that just freaking joy of being you,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, what if we could infect the world with joy? And it's like, what if that's what actually changes the world? And it's
Yeah.
that simple.
Exactly.
That
Yeah.
you being you
I
is what
love that,
changes the
Paula.
world.
I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know besides being an access consciousness facilitator and a being you facilitator, and I think also a right voice for you facilitator,
Joy
right?
business facilitator.
Joy of
Oh,
business. Okay,
businesses.
cool. So you got all of these yumminesses going on, and you're also a hair magician. You have
I'm
your
a
own
hairstylist.
salon, or
Yeah. 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 And I
cool.
think yeah, that's also, I mean, it's created, that's actually been one of the greatest gifts of using the tools of access consciousness of being a facilitator is that having interaction with people constantly where I can actually give them like a tool to play with that could change their life, change their entire realities. Um,
Yeah.
when they're willing to receive it, because it's one of those things where how so often people go to their hairdressers and just want to like complain about all of the things that are terrible and bad and awful in their lives.
Mhm.
And it's like
Yeah.
to be able to
You
give
didn't
them a tool.
realize your second title was therapist, right? As a hairdresser or bartender,
Basically,
whichever.
right? Basically. But it's
Yeah.
like to give people that space of like, who does it belong to, or what else is possible,
Paging
or
for
how
Santa
does it get even
passengers,
better
Sarah
than that?
Daniels.
Even those little tools can completely transform someone's reality if they choose it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And Paula, where can people find you?
Thank you for
I
asking.
will
So you can
make
find me
a
on
little banner right here, right now,
yes.
so that people
Yes.
know.
So you can find me at
Yeah.
my
Because I know
website.
they can, it's access consciousness. Like it's on
Yep.
the access consciousness website, but
Yes, you can find me on the Access Consciousness site, or you can go to my website, www.paulaperalta.com. Or you can go to my Instagram, which is where I'm usually most active, and it's Hair by Paula Peralta.
Mhm.
So it's a lot of hair stuff, but it's also tools and little bits and bobs using the tools, little Facebook or Instagram lives and things like that. Or you can find me on Facebook,
Cool.
Paula Peralta. Yeah, you can find me. I'm everywhere.
Yeah,
I'm typing
you
it up
are
and we
everywhere.
will
You're
have
infinite being.
That's true.
We all are. This is about being everywhere. Yeah.
there we
Now,
go. So
here we
everybody
go.
can
Yeah.
Amazing.
find you
Thank
with
you so much.
ease. It is
Yes.
our pleasure. What have you got coming up in any of these fun, amazing universes?
Yes. So I have a couple of Getting Out of Debt Joyfully classes coming up. I have Being You intro class coming up as well that you guys can always reach out. And that's all I have on the schedule right now, but there is more to come. I have more creations, and this conversation actually sparked some other ideas as well. So
Awesome. How does it
Cool.
get even better than that? I
how
love
does
that.
it?
And yeah, I'd love to give you a hug in person. You're inspiring me with all the airport sounds behind you. Our
Uh-huh.
airport is still shut, so there's no
Uh,
like flying unless we, you know,
Yeah.
cross the border by foot into Mexico and then fly from there. But I'm not bothering right
Magic,
now.
magic.
But it's funny. It could be possible, but it's just a little complicated. So we're looking
Yeah.
forward
I'm
to
hoping.
traveling soon.
Yeah, I'm
What else
hoping
is
to start
possible? It's so
traveling
amazing.
too. It's like I cannot wait because I have a class scheduled in Taiwan in
Mhm.
November and in London.
I know. Can you imagine Taiwan with
That's amazing.
spas? Like, oh, it's so
Oh
much
my
fun.
goodness.
Yes.
That sounds
So
incredible.
so hopefully airports will be open and I
Yeah,
will be
internationally, in the
international.
United States, it's been pretty easy to go from
Yeah,
place to place.
right. But I
I'll send
think
you
it's
some of my airport
international.
juju.
Yeah.
Yay, we're
I love
taking it. We're
it.
taking it. That's why I asked you not to mute. Because what looks like a distraction or a disturbance, what if it is the greatest contribution on the planet and you're waking up a few more of us to let's have that yumminess in our life.
Yeah,
I
because
love
it's
it.
just an invitation. It is an invitation to start creating more and shifting this reality to what we desire, not what somebody else's chooses and
Yes.
judges and concludes and computes.
Yep.
I love it.
Thank you
Yeah,
for taking time out
thank
of the
you.
travel schedule to chat with us.
Thank
And
you for
we're
having
really
me.
grateful. Mwah.
Thank you. Mwah.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.